Well, Eric, the Federal Reserve announcing another 0.25% interest rate cut, the third this year. Despite that, mortgage rates are creeping up. Let's bring in Gene Marks, small business expert and CEO of Marks Group. So, Gene, if interest rates are falling, why are mortgage rates rising?
It's quite the quandary, right, Arthel? Well, listen, it all has to do with inflation. So if you're trying to get a mortgage right now, your bank doesn't want to commit to a 30-year interest rate if it thinks that the cost of capital and the cost of inflation is going to go up over that period of time. So even though the Federal Reserve just lowered interest rates, banks are looking at a different metric. And the metric is Treasury notes, a 10-year Treasury note. They're looking at the yields that come from those Treasury notes. And why? Because people that put money in Treasury notes, they want to stay ahead of inflation, right? They want to earn more interest than what future inflation is going to be. And unfortunately, the markets right now, they think that inflation is not only going to stay where it is, but could go up in the future. Right now, inflation is still 50% higher than what the Fed is targeting. And there's not a lot of confidence in the markets that the Fed is going to reach that target. In fact, there's a lot of pressure to push prices up. So banks are sort of taking that into consideration, and they're looking at the Treasury notes. They're not looking at interest rate cuts from the Fed. Hope that makes sense.
Well, it does, but I was kind of surprised when you said inflation will more than likely go up. I thought that was the whole idea of getting rid of the old and bringing in the new administration so we can get a control of inflation. But you're telling me that's not the case?
Well, you have politicians that are promising and saying one thing, and then there's the reality of the financial markets. So right now, inflation is still about 2.9%. And again, the Fed's target was 2%. They can only lower interest rates so much. And there are other inflationary things that are going on right now that are concerning the markets. I mean, there are still supply chain and cost issues. There are tariff issues as well. So the markets are saying, okay, well, inflation is at this level now, but we think that inflation could not only remain at this level, but could be going up in the future. And that's why these yields on Treasury notes are what they are.
And we could have more tariff issues, but we'll see. So listen, let's go back to this. So if mortgage rates are rising, Gene, what's your advice for those looking to buy a home and your advice to people who had hoped to shop for lower mortgage rates?
First of all, if you're looking to buy a home, that is hopefully a long-term decision. You're going to be living there. So I wouldn't stop buying a home because mortgage rates are going up. I don't think the increase in mortgage rates over the next few years are going to be very significant. And I don't think it should be putting you off of buying your dream home or doing what you need to do. Also keep in mind that when interest rates hopefully do come down, you can always refinance those rates as well. So I know a lot of people are holding off on buying homes right now. I know inventory is short, but I just want to say that the real estate market in this country, it represents 20% of gross domestic product. So home buyers have a big impact on the U.S. economy. And you and I, if we're looking to buy a new house, Arthel, I mean, again, you find your good place. You might pay a little bit more in mortgage interest now. Hopefully, over the long term, you're still going to get enjoyment out of your house. And again, you'll be able to refinance your mortgage at some point and get that cost down. But don't let it put you off of buying that dream home.
Okay, well, let's look. In the meantime, let's take a look at some mortgage rates under 6%. So apparently there was a record high, Gene, in 2022, which at 92.8%. Now, currently, 85.7% of mortgages are under 6%, and currently 57.4% of home mortgages are in the U.S. here. They're under 4%. So I have a question for you that I think a lot of people debate this question. So I'll lob it over to you, which is, do you consider renting a home a waste of money?
Not at all. I mean, right now, when you look at the cost of rental of a home compared to the cost of home ownership, short term, it makes the most sense. But there's a tipping point. Usually the rule of thumb is that if you're going to own a home for about 10 years, which is a longer term decision, that flips from a cost perspective. But the cost of renting, if you're going to be owning on a short-term basis, it's usually a better deal for you and a better option for you if you're just looking to rent a home over just a few years. Also, mortgage rates themselves, you bring up a really good point. You should be shopping, talking to a lot of mortgage brokers and talking to a lot of banks. And remember, guys, I mean, why pay interest if you don't need to? The more money that you can save and the more money that you can put down on a home, well, that's going to reduce the amount of debt that you need and the amount of mortgage interest that you'll be paying. So the more cash that you can provide for the purchase of a home, the better for that purchase of a home. So I've been telling my kids as well, because they're looking to buy their first home, give it another year, save some money. That'll give you the ability to put more cash down on that house. It'll reduce your mortgage over the longer term. You could pay the rent over this period of time. It still makes sense short term. To me, that's the smart financial move right now.
Cash is still king. I'm going to squeeze this in, but you have to be quick because they're going to kill me otherwise.
Go ahead.
Quickly, if interest rates are falling, is now the time to renegotiate your APR with credit card companies? And what are the magic words so they don't just blow you off?
You're going to have a hard time negotiating your APR with credit card companies, Arthel. I mean, these are big banks and big organizations, and it's just individual consumers. It's not a good thing to do. The smart move is, if you have equity in your home, refinance your credit card debt and put it against your home equity. You'll cut your interest rate in half by doing that, at least. That's what I recommend.
Always with a great recommendation. CEO of Marks Group, Gene Marks. Thank you.
Thanks, Arthel.
Eric?
Take care.
Yeah, good advice.